My brother slept with my wife and got her pregnant, so I divorced her. Now he wants my help because my parents disowned him and gave me all their inheritance. I, 35M, need to vent about the drama that's been unfolding in my family for the past few years. It's a long and complicated story, so bear with me. My brother Nathan, 33M, and I grew up in a small town in the Midwest. Our parents were hardworking middle-class folks. Dad was a high school teacher and Mom ran a small bakery. We weren't rich, but we never wanted for anything important. Nathan and I shared a room in our modest 3-bedroom house, and for the most part, we got along well as kids. I have fond memories of us playing in the creek behind our house, catching frogs and building makeshift dams. We'd spend hours in our treehouse, reading comics and planning imaginary adventures. Nathan was always the more outgoing one, making friends easily and charming adults with his quick wit. I was quieter, more introspective, but Nathan always made sure I was included in games and activities with the neighborhood kids. Things started to change when we hit our teenage years. I remember the summer before I started high school. Nathan was 13, and he started hanging out with a group of older kids from the next town over. At first, it seemed harmless enough. They'd ride bikes around town, hang out at the abandoned quarry, typical teenage stuff. But then Nathan started coming home late, sometimes smelling of cigarettes or alcohol. Our parents tried to rein him in, but Nathan became increasingly rebellious. He'd talk back, slam doors, and sneak out at night. I'd lie awake in our shared room, waiting for him to climb back through the window, worried he'd get caught or hurt. Meanwhile, I threw myself into my studies and extracurricular activities. I joined the debate team and the math club, determined to get into a good college and make something of myself. Nathan would tease me, calling me a nerd and a teacher's pet, but I could sense an undercurrent of resentment in his words. Our parents always tried to treat us equally, but as Nathan's behavior worsened, they couldn't help but compare us. They'd praise my good grades and responsible behavior, often in contrast to Nathan's latest escapade. I could see how this widened the rift between us, but I didn't know how to fix it. By the time I graduated high school, Nathan and I were like strangers living in the same house. I left for college with a mixture of excitement and guilt, leaving my parents to deal with Nathan's increasingly erratic behavior. I thrived in college, studying engineering and making new friends who shared my interests. It was during my sophomore year that I met Rebecca. We were paired up for a project in our Introduction to Ethics class. She was pre-law, brilliant, and beautiful. We started dating a few months later, and I felt like I'd found my other half. Nathan, meanwhile, had dropped out of community college after a single semester. He moved back home, much to our parents' dismay, and cycled through a series of dead-end jobs. He'd work for a few weeks or months, then quit or get fired, usually over some petty disagreement with a boss or coworker. Despite his lack of direction, Nathan maintained this sense of entitlement when it came to our family's finances. Our grandparents had left our parents a modest inheritance when they passed away, which our parents had invested wisely over the years. It wasn't a fortune by any means, but it was enough to give them a comfortable retirement. Nathan would often brag about how he was going to get the lion's share of the inheritance because he was the fun son who actually spent time with our parents. He conveniently ignored the fact that he was living rent-free in their basement, eating their food, and constantly borrowing money he never paid back. I remember one Thanksgiving break during my senior year of college. I'd brought Rebecca home to meet my family, and things were tense from the start. Nathan kept making inappropriate comments about Rebecca, saying things like, "I can see why you locked that down," and making crude gestures when he thought I wasn't looking. I confronted him about it later that night, after Rebecca had gone to bed. We were in the kitchen, and I asked him to knock it off and show some respect. He just laughed and said I was being too sensitive. "Lighten up, bro," he said, cracking open another beer. "I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. A girl that hot with a nerd like you? You should be thanking me for not stealing her away." I was furious, but I didn't want to cause a scene and ruin the holiday for our parents. I walked away, but things were never quite the same between us after that. After graduation, Rebecca and I got married and moved to the city where we'd both found jobs. Nathan was my best man, more out of obligation than anything else. His speech at the reception was uncomfortable, full of backhanded compliments and inside jokes that no one else understood. For the next few years, we settled into our careers and started thinking about starting a family. We bought a small house in the suburbs and started trying for a baby. But month after month, nothing happened. We went through a battery of tests, and eventually, we were told that we both had fertility issues that would make conceiving naturally very difficult. We started looking into fertility treatments, a process that was both emotionally and financially draining. I confided in my parents about our struggles, seeking their support and advice. Unfortunately, This information made its way to Nathan, who seemed to view it as another opportunity to make inappropriate jokes at my expense. The last time we had Nathan over for dinner, about 2 years ago, he spent the entire evening making snide comments about my swimmers and offering to help out if we needed a donor. Rebecca was visibly uncomfortable, and I was seething with anger. After he left, Rebecca broke down in tears, saying she couldn't handle being around him anymore. I agreed, and we decided to limit our interactions with Nathan as much as possible. We still saw him at family gatherings, but we kept our distance and tried to avoid one-on-one conversations. Then came the day that changed everything. I had taken a half-day off work for a doctor's appointment, but it got canceled at the last minute. I decided to head home early, thinking I might surprise Rebecca with lunch. As I pulled into our driveway, I saw Nathan's beat-up Camaro parked on the street. I thought maybe he'd stopped by to apologize for his behavior or to borrow money again, but when I walked into our bedroom, I found them in bed together. The next few hours were a blur. There was shouting, crying, accusations flying back and forth. Rebecca tried to explain, saying it had only happened a few times, that she was lonely and stressed about the fertility treatments. Nathan just stood there with this smug look on his face, like he'd finally won some long-standing competition between us. I kicked them both out and filed for divorce the next day. The following months were a haze of lawyers, paperwork, and moving out of the home we had shared. I was a mess, barely functioning at work and avoiding my family as much as possible. About 3 months after I caught them, Nathan called me. He was drunk, his words slurring as he rambled on, but I got the gist of it. Rebecca was pregnant, and he was pretty sure it was his. He had the audacity to ask me if I would be cool about it, since Rebecca and I had wanted a baby so badly. I hung up on him and blocked his number. I also blocked Rebecca and changed my email address. I couldn't deal with either of them anymore. When my parents found out what happened, they were horrified. They tried to mediate at first, saying that family was important and we should try to work things out, but I was done. I told them I didn't want to hear anything about Nathan or Rebecca ever again. For the past 1.5 years, I've been focusing on rebuilding my life. I threw myself into work, got a promotion, and even started dating again recently. I thought I was finally moving on from all the drama. But last week I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was Nathan. He was sobbing, barely coherent. From what I could gather, our parents had finally had enough of his behavior. They had told him they were cutting him out of their will and leaving everything to me. Nathan was begging me to talk to our parents, to convince them to change their minds. He said he was struggling to support Rebecca and the baby. Apparently, it was his after all, and he needed the money. I told him I wasn't getting involved and hung up, but now I'm conflicted. On one hand, I don't owe Nathan or Rebecca anything after what they did to me. On the other hand, there's an innocent child involved now. I don't know what to do. Part of me wants to tell Nathan to figure it out himself, but another part feels guilty about the whole situation. Am I wrong for not wanting to help? Should I talk to my parents about this? I'm lost and could use some outside perspective. Update 1. It's been about a month since my last post, and a lot has happened. I want to thank everyone who took the time to read my story and offer advice. Your insights really helped me gain some perspective on this messy situation. After much deliberation, I decided not to get involved with Nathan's inheritance drama. Many of you pointed out that it wasn't my responsibility to fix his mistakes. And I agree. I've worked hard to rebuild my life after what he and Rebecca did, and I don't want to risk getting pulled back into their chaos. However, I did decide to reach out to my parents. Not to advocate for Nathan, but to get their side of the story and make sure they were okay. We met for dinner at a neutral location, a small Italian restaurant where we used to celebrate special occasions when Nathan and I were kids. It was intense, to say the least. My parents looked tired and older than I remembered. Mom's hair had more gray in it, and Dad's face seemed etched with new worry lines. They told me that Nathan's behavior had gotten worse over the past year. He'd been coming around asking for money constantly, sometimes showing up drunk or high. He'd scream at them when they refused, calling them terrible parents and threatening to keep them from seeing their grandchild. They recounted an incident from a few months ago that really shook them. Nathan had shown up at the bakery during the lunch rush, clearly intoxicated. He started yelling at Mom, demanding money, and causing a scene in front of customers. When Dad tried to intervene, Nathan shoved him, nearly knocking him over. It was only when another customer threatened to call the police that Nathan finally left. The final straw came when Nathan tried to forge our dad's signature on a check. He was caught trying to cash it at the local bank. The teller recognized Dad's signature from years of doing business there and called to verify. Instead of apologizing when confronted, Nathan flew into a rage and trashed their living room, breaking the antique clock that had been in the family for generations and tearing up old photo albums. That's when they decided to change their will. They said it wasn't about punishing Nathan, but about protecting themselves and their assets. They were worried that if something happened to them, Nathan would blow through the money in no time, leaving nothing for his child. I was shocked. I knew Nathan had issues, but I never thought he'd go that far. My parents were in tears as they told me all this, saying they felt like failures for not being able to help him. Mom kept saying she didn't know where they went wrong, that they had tried to raise us both with the same values. I assured them that they weren't failures. They had done their best, but Nathan was an adult who made his own choices. We talked for hours, catching up on everything that had happened in the time we'd been distant. It felt good to reconnect with them, even if the circumstances were less than ideal. They told me about the baby, my niece, I guess. Her name is Lily, and she's about 6 months old now. They've only seen her a handful of times, as Nathan uses access to her as a bargaining chip. It breaks their hearts, they said, to be kept from their only grandchild. As for Nathan, he didn't take my refusal to help well. He's been bombarding me with calls and texts from different numbers, alternating between begging for help and hurling insults. One minute he's saying he's sorry for everything and that he needs his big brother. The next, he's cursing me out and saying I was always mom and dad's favorite. I've blocked each new number as it comes up, but it's emotionally draining to keep dealing with his mood swings. Rebecca reached out too, sending a long email apologizing for everything and asking if we could talk. She said she regretted what happened and wished she could take it all back. She wrote about how hard it's been being a single mom, apparently Nathan isn't much help, and how she often thinks about the life we could have had together. I didn't respond. Maybe someday I'll be ready to hear her out, but right now the wound is still too fresh. Work has been a welcome distraction from all this family drama. I've been putting in extra hours on a big project. We're developing a new type of energy-efficient building material, and it's fascinating work. My boss noticed my dedication and hinted at another possible promotion in the near future. I've also been spending more time with friends, trying to rebuild the social life I neglected during my marriage and subsequent divorce. Last weekend, a group of us went camping at a nearby state park. It was nice to get away from cell phone reception and just enjoy nature for a while. We hiked, fished, and sat around the campfire telling stories, for a little. While I was able to forget about all the drama and just be in the moment. The woman I mentioned I was dating in my last post, Sam, has been incredibly supportive through all of this. We're taking things slow, but it's nice to have someone to talk to who isn't involved in the situation. She's a graphic designer who loves the outdoors, and she's been teaching me about photography on our weekend hikes. As for the future, I'm still not sure what it holds. My parents have made it clear that they don't expect me to have a relationship with Nathan if I don't want to. They've promised to respect my boundaries and not try to force a reconciliation. But they did ask if I'd consider meeting my niece someday, which is something I'll have to think about. For now, I'm focusing on maintaining my relationship with my parents while keeping Nathan at arm's length. It's not a perfect solution, but it's what feels right for me at this moment. I know this update doesn't have a neat resolution, but that's life, isn't it? Messy and complicated. I'm just taking it one day at a time and trying to make the best decisions I can with the information I have. Thank you all again for your support. It means more than you know. Update 2. It's been about 6 months since my last update, and I wanted to share some developments in this ongoing saga. First, the good news. Things have been going well for me personally. That promotion at work came through, and I've been settling into my new role as project lead for our green building materials division. It's challenging, but in a good way that keeps me engaged and motivated. I'm learning a lot about management and team dynamics, skills I never thought I'd need as an engineer. Sam and I are still together, and our relationship has been growing stronger. We recently took a weekend trip to the coast, renting a small cabin overlooking the ocean. It was the most relaxed I've felt in years. We spent our days hiking along the cliffs, exploring tide pools, and evenings cooking together and talking by the fireplace. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I could see a future beyond the next few months. Now, for the not-so-good news. Despite my efforts to keep Nathan out of my life, family drama has a way of creeping back in. About 2 months ago, I got a call from my mom. She was in tears, telling me that Nathan had been arrested for drunk driving. Apparently, he'd wrapped his car around a tree after leaving a bar. The real kicker? Rebecca and the baby were in the car with him. By some miracle, no one was seriously hurt. Rebecca had a broken arm, and the baby, my niece Lily, was thankfully unharmed thanks to her car seat. But Nathan was facing some serious charges, including child endangerment. I was shocked. As angry as I was with Nathan, I never thought he'd do something so recklessly stupid, especially with his own child in the car. My parents were beside themselves, torn between worry for Nathan and anger at his actions. Against my better judgment, I agreed to go with them to Nathan's arraignment. Walking into that courtroom was surreal. The last time I'd been in a courtroom was for my divorce proceedings, and now here I was, watching my brother shuffle in wearing an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs. Nathan looked awful. He'd lost weight, his eyes were bloodshot, and he had a nasty cut on his forehead from the accident. When he saw us in the gallery, he burst into tears. It was hard to reconcile this broken man with the charming, confident brother I grew up with. Rebecca was there too, her arm in a cast and dark circles under her eyes. She tried to approach me after the hearing, but I just couldn't bring myself to talk to her. I nodded politely and walked away, ignoring the way my stomach churned at the sight of her. Nathan's lawyer managed to get him into a rehab program instead of jail time. But he's on thin ice. One more slip up, and he's looking at serious prison time. My parents are cautiously optimistic that this will be the wake-up call Nathan needs, but I'm not holding my breath. This whole situation has stirred up a lot of complicated feelings. I'm angry at Nathan for continuing to make such destructive choices, worried about the impact on Lily, and frustrated that I'm getting pulled back into his drama despite my best efforts to stay away. After the arraignment, my parents asked if I would consider being more involved in Lily's life. They're worried about her welfare, given Nathan's instability and Rebecca's apparent inability to set boundaries with him. I'm torn about this. On one hand, Lily is an innocent in all this, and I hate the thought of her growing up in such a chaotic environment. On the other hand, getting involved means having to interact with Nathan and Rebecca, which I'm not sure I'm ready for. Sam has been my rock through all of this. She's listened to me vent, offered a shoulder to cry on, and given me space when I needed it. She even offered to come with me to the arraignment for moral support, though I decided it was better to go alone. I don't know how I would have handled all this without her support. Last week, Sam and I had a long talk about the future. She knows about all the family drama, and she's been incredibly understanding. But she also gently pointed out that at some point, I'll need to make some decisions about what kind of relationship, if any, I want to have with Nathan and his family going forward. It's not an easy thing to think about, but I know she's right. As for my relationship with my parents, it's been strained, but we're working on it. They understand my desire to keep my distance from Nathan, but I can tell they're hoping for some kind of reconciliation eventually. They've started seeing a family therapist to help them deal with the stress of the situation, which I think is a positive step. I've been thinking a lot about forgiveness lately. Not necessarily for Nathan's sake, but for my own peace of mind. I'm not there yet, and I don't know if I ever will be. The betrayal still feels fresh, even after all this time. But I'm trying to work through these feelings, maybe find a way to let go of some of this anger I've been carrying around. Work continues to be a welcome distraction. We're in the final stages of testing our new building material, and early results are promising. If all goes well, we could be looking at a major breakthrough in sustainable construction. It's exciting to be part of something that could make a real difference in the world. I've also been trying to expand my social circle beyond just work friends. I joined a local hiking group and have been going on weekend treks. It's been nice to meet new people who don't know anything about my complicated family history. There's a freedom in being able to just be myself, without any baggage or expectations. For now, I'm trying to maintain boundaries while still being there for my parents as much as I can. It's a delicate balance, and I'm not always sure I'm getting it right. I've agreed to meet Lily, but I've made it clear that this doesn't mean I'm ready to forgive Nathan or have a relationship with him. I don't know what the future holds. Nathan's actions have shown me that just when I think things are settling down, life can throw another curveball. All I can do is keep moving forward, focusing on the positive aspects of my life while dealing with the family drama as it comes. There are days when I feel angry and resentful, wishing I could just cut ties completely and never look back. But there are also moments when I remember the brother I used to have, the one who looked out for me when we were kids, and I feel a pang of sadness for what's been lost. I'm trying to take things one day at a time, setting small, manageable goals for myself. Right now, that means focusing on my career, nurturing my relationship with Sam, and slowly rebuilding my relationship with my parents. As for Nathan, Rebecca, and Lily, well, that's still a work in progress. Thank you all for listening and for your continued support. It helps more than you know to have a place to share these complicated feelings and experiences. Life doesn't always give us clear-cut solutions or happy endings, but I'm doing my best to navigate this messy situation as best I can.